I've been keeping my eye out for a while for one of these Seiko UC-2000 series smart wristwatches with a accompanying base station, and earlier this year I managed to finally find one for a decent price. It was of course sold as not working, which to me typically means the battery is dead and the person doesn't know how to change it, but in this case both pieces were legitimately broken and I managed to fix them. So the boxes could be in better shape, but honestly, personally, I really don't care about packaging. It's a waste of space to me. I'm more interested in the device itself. It is much more cool. But, I mean, neat regardless. It came with the manuals. And of course, the device. The base station, or controller, had a issue with the print guard, paper guard here. A chunk of plastic missing that I bridged with some packing tape to allow the paper to slide over it easily and not snag on the corners of the brake. And the wristwatch is cosmetically pretty good. Though there are some small scuffs on the front which may or may not appear very well on the camera here. Can't really see on the glare, but as you can see, the watch is working. And if I go look at, say, a memo, oh, that's transmit. Let's look at memo. There we go. You can see that I have managed to communicate with it and load some information into the memo. What's nice about this device is that the watch can actually have some functions away from the base unit. It comes with an application ROM, or in this case they call it the game ROM pack, where you can load a game onto the watch and play it away from the base station. However, the room that would typically have been used for the memos is gone, so the memo functionality is gone. It is now replaced with the game or application that you may have. And these ROMs go in here, have this little slider catch to keep it in place. There's a ROM IC in here with a zebra strip connecting to the pads down here. And the plastic in here is super brittle. I've had to glue and melt it together to make it clean again. So be very careful. This is the transmission circuit, which is a coil of wire inside, and the watch just sits in here and it gets in the way of the keys, so you can flip it up and guide the strap around, work on it at an angle or right side up. And when I got this, the watch was not working and the base unit was having an issue. Despite having fresh batteries or being plugged in on AC power or DC input, the printer would just say, check batteries, and do nothing else. It wouldn't talk to the watch, which was dead, obviously, and nothing would happen. But now, it works fine. Nothing will happen on the watch until you are in transmit mode. And to me, the quickest, easiest way to see that the device is working is to play with the contrast. If that goes up and down, then the watch and the base unit are talking. You don't have to worry about things. So this has Microsoft Basic built into the base unit. The watch needs to be in the base unit to use the Microsoft Basic. In this state, the watch is more of a terminal screen than anything else, and the control unit here is the main computer, and it's just showing the information on the watch. That's all the watch is doing. The watch isn't containing the basic program. You can't run the program away from the base unit. And you have so you have to wait for the line to feed down. It's annoying. Oops. The refresh rate is abysmal on this. So you have about 1.5K of memory available for your basic program. And you can also load applications from the game ROM pack. These are the options available. Now strangely they have these numbered, but if you press the number, nothing happens. You have to arrow through the selections and then press enter to use or load that selection. So like race, if I hit return, I'll transmit race to the watch. This takes a while. it should be loaded. So if we get back out of here and go to mode, see now it says race instead of memo. And it runs independently of the cradle. I don't know the instructions of the game, so I don't know how to play this just now. It seemed to be some kind of horse racing thing. Okay, running racing. Oh, I see. So you place bets on a runner, and you just wait and see if the runner wins. I did not win. Oh, wait, I did. Okay, cool. Anyway, I digress. So the first issue with the base station takes 3 AA batteries. In here was the change battery error that I was always getting. You have to remove all the screws on the bottom. They're all Phillips. I'm using a 00 here, but it's a little too small. Works fine though. This opens up from the printer side. So, it's paper unraveled. So I noticed when I powered this up, there were 2 capacitors over here, identical, and this one was getting hot. When I removed it, it started working. So this capacitor has an internal short. It should be replaced. I haven't done it because it seems to work fine relatively without it. And another issue, there's some liquid damage here around the printer head connector. There's an electrolytic cap here and here, which potentially could be culprits for leaking some corrosive juices, but it was only here on the connector. Really strange. So I cleaned that up. It seems to work fine after that. The printer unit is its own thing. The sound noise piezo speakers there. It sits on its own pegs like that. Just line the paper up. Keyboard here, transmission circuit there, ROM pack here connects to that. Main CPU, which is a T6643, some RAM, ROM, driver IC. You get the picture. Back the paper up a little bit more. Oops. There we go. That's your breeze through. Oops. Shoot. Paper's a pain in the butt to feed through when it's already going. There we go. Okay. This in, feed it back in. There we go. Perfect. Let's close this back up. There you go. So that's the base unit overview. Simple repair, strange find. That's good. On to the watch. Now the watch originally uses a 2325 cell, which is a little bit bigger than a 2032 and thinner. I didn't have any on hand, but I do have a 2025, which somewhat fit inside, which is what I have in here now. And if we open up the back, this is where the PH0 screw comes in handy. Or 00, I should say. this side. So here's the noise piezo unit. This is the transmission coil, this golden circle. You can see my 2032 in here, which has lots of room around it because it's a little bit small, but yet fits. It has some waterproofing. There's a seal there. This entire unit will just pop right out. There we go. You have to be careful here. There's a little spring here that touches the speaker. So you can just pull that out, put it somewhere you know it's going to be safe. So as we're meddling with this, it won't fall out and disappear. Inside the watch, there's this little metal guard. I'm not quite sure what its purpose is, but it's there. It has a tendency to fall out. On the flip side, see we have our buttons. There's some sandwiching there. And there are some three test points here on the edge of the battery. Taking it apart, I found that this is the positive of the battery. This is the negative of the battery. And then this one down here in the middle is the reset. So you touch this to the top of the battery, and that will reset the watch. You can also reset it using the procedure in the manual of holding down all four buttons while inside the base unit and pressing the stop key. All four and stop. That resets the watch as well. But if you're in here changing the batteries, just bridge that to this middle one here. And to disassemble it, to replace the battery, you just remove these four flathead screws. That just removes this plate and the battery will pop out. I'm not going to do that here because it doesn't really matter for what I'm going to show you. There are four other screws here, also flathead, but they're like razor thin. I had to take this small bit I have, which was still too thick, and put it into a pair of pliers and just kind of squish it down until it was very sharp, and then I was able to slot it in. Two issues with this. It wasn't turning on, and once I finally got it to turn on, it wasn't speaking to the base unit. The issue with not turning on was there was a weird thing where every time I pushed a button, the display would come on momentarily and then fade out. And if I pulsed a button, I could just get it to go on and the clock was count. But once it faded out, the clock would reset. The brain of the watch was not getting power, but it seemed to be leaching power through maybe some internal diodes via the buttons, which are connected to positive. So this tells me that the positive line was somehow not connected. And my first thought was, if I can't figure it out, I'm going to just get a bunch of resistors and kind of bridge them to the positive in a way that doesn't toggle the button, but gives enough juice to the brain to turn it on. But I didn't have to do that. What I did notice while fiddling around, there's a little varistor here. When I was poking in there to see if that did anything, I noticed giving it pressure would start the watch up. So to me, that says there's a bad solder joint in there. Could be on the resistor, the varistor itself, or who knows. The second issue, the transmission, I found that the wire, these 2 points here, was broken somewhere. And to figure out how to get around that, I took my multimeter on resistor, ohm measurement, and first checked the continuity, and there was nothing, so the loop was open. This is not turning on. There we go. But then what I did was take some moisture, and really reality it was my spit, and coated the top of the ring, touched one, see if I got any kind of resistance measurement, and I did from this point to somewhere on here, but nothing from there. So it told me that this wire was intact, but this one was broken. And what I did to get around that, you can maybe see I have a little cat hair whisker here, a springy piece of metal attached to this terminal, and just kind of poking in to the coil from the outside here, and that worked. So this little cat hair whisker, it's cat's whisker I should say, is just pushing in there through pressure, breaking some of the enamel of the coil and finishing the loop. Luckily for me, it seems that the break was on the outside of the loop, not somewhere internal, so there's enough inductance in there still to communicate with. I'm going to take this apart for you to show you the fix for no power, in my case at least. So you have these 4 tiny little screws that require like a razor sharp screwdriver. You can see as I pull these off, the pressure is going away from the display and it starts to go out because the contact is no longer enough to let the electricity flow between the circuit board and the LCD. There's this little metal pressure plate. Same on the bottom. It's kind of fun seeing the display fade out in the regions you remove the screws from. Now ideally you probably have the battery removed doing this to prevent damage, but I've done this so many times now I haven't had a problem. So this LCD part comes off, and there are the button contacts here. They just come right off, so put these aside so they don't fly off somewhere that you don't see where they go. And they are magnetic, or ferrous I should say. And you'll see there's a, if I pop the LCD out, note that, so this is right side up orientation. The LCD has some white dots on the right edge. Keep that on the right edge. Although I'm not sure there is a polarity, but I'm just doing that to maintain consistency. So we pull the LCD off. You'll see there's a, I guess an RF shield, EMF shield under there. And this just sits in a way that a little tab here goes through a little hole in the corner there. So fiddly. Lost that zebra stripe, that's fine. Put that back in place. Put this back in place. We'll set that aside. So this is the one side of the PCB. The other side has a removable, or not removable, but a daughter board that's been soldered down. And what I found when pushing on the varistor here is that resoldering these points nearby it had brought the watch back to life. So to fix it, in my case, I just added a little bit of solder on these points in this general area, but it might be a good idea to do it on all of them, because I'm not sure how well you can see it on camera. There's very scant soldering connecting the main board from the daughter board. I'm presuming this is the main CPU, whereas the other side is LCD controllers. I'm not sure. So we have the timing crystal, we have an inductor for the buzzer, and you can see the test pads here. So this is the contact for the negative, which goes to this tab on the battery. So we have our test points here, here, and over here. This one goes to negative up there. Oops, there goes that. Again, ferrous metal. And this one has positive, which is the one that was poking through here. So if you're not too sure the battery is working or making continuity, those are your test points for negative and positive to see if the battery is going to the main board. And again, this is the reset line. Now on reassembly, this little tongue for the negative of the battery has two little posts. In this case, tweezers are going to be my friend. Another thing interesting too is that these metal posts that go through, that the battery is screwed on with, are part of the electric circuit of the board. So the board has its own contacts all around, which are not interconnected. They take advantage of the posts making bridges between these points. So all four of these should be making a firm contact to the board to make sure everything's working. So, okay, back to the battery. You can see it kind of wants to pop out because it's too small, but just right. Negative goes on this pad. So you just bring it down, and also this inductor goes into that hole. Bring it down like so, so that fits nicely. Oh, before I continue on that, the coil has these two little tongues here that make contact with the board here, these 2 points. So one goes directly to the positive of the battery, and then one goes to the transmission circuit. Close that up again. And the LCD tapering is on the top to match the taper of the watch body or the watch circuit board. Let me get this back in place. Screw that down. So once I got one screw down, it's usually much more smooth sailing from here. Okay. Now the buttons have their two posts they can sit on. Come on, little guy. There's one. Two. Perfect. Now we put this crossbar down on top, make them secure. Get your screw in one corner. Got it. Okay. So the LCD is suddenly springing to life. We get some pressure. You can see it wants to complete. So applying the rest of the screws should continue this process of, and it wants to, there it goes. Get it nice and tight, there we go. We have our full display on. Make sure these are nice and snug, nice and snug. Okay. So now that the watch seems to be functioning again, check the buttons. Oh. By default, the contrast seems a little too high. So, going back to the base unit, just plop it on there. In this case, you can see nothing's happening. So that takes us back to my little cat's hair hack here. I must have knocked it while fiddling with it, so I'm just gonna move it around somewhere new. There, maybe. Let's try this again. Still nothing. Oh, I forgot. Before anything happens, it has to be on transmit mode. So go to transmit. There we go. Yeah, so no contact, no communication. Let's go somewhere else. This is very fiddly, finding where to get that whisker to poke. There we go. So now the contrast is changing. It's talking. Next, to dump out my little bits here, see if it can still speak through the base plate. And again, cool. Let's check one of the functions. No, does not like that. Let's try again. When it beeps, it's going to want to print out transmission error, so I'm resetting it. You can see there's an issue, so I'm going to have to poke it somewhere else. That's not a good spot for the whisker to poke the coil. There's an issue with the communication. Let's see what happens there. Okay, Okay, we've got contrast control, basic. Perfect, there we go. Okay. Now the problem with this hack is that because the wire is just kind of sitting there poking it, if you drop the watch, it could dislodge the wire. And I'm not comfortable enough gluing this in place to prevent that from happening, because who knows what else could happen. If I glue it, it's going to be stuck to that wire and it's going to ruin the coil. So I'd rather just have it accessible. Oops. There's that metal piece. The little metal fin goes over the buttons. Again, I'm not sure the purpose of it. Let's get on the main mode. And do best to get finger smudges off and dust. Looks good. Buttons down there with the dots, like so. Then I have to get our little buzzer spring into the opening that belongs. It's this little teardrop shaped hole to accommodate the little finger on the spring, which is supposed to keep it from popping out, but that doesn't work too well. There we go. Pop the case back on. Double check that there is communication. Contrast is working. Oh, there we go. So if I pull the watch away while it's doing that, it'll complain about transmission error. So that was bad. Expected though. So I want to get the watch band out of the way so I can do the basic demo. On basic. There, you can see better now. So 10 print. You hold on shift for lowercase. Carriage returns take forever. And the copy should display what's on the screen on the printer. I guess not in basic mode, but if we run it, that is full speed. And again, it will not run away from the base station. Complaining about transmission error, that's fine. Let's see, we have our applications. Let's do the demo. That doesn't seem to load anything on the watch. It's just, again, using the watch as a display to show some text stuff. That's neat. I'll let this run through. So here they're showing some examples of using their glyphs here. They have a phone, an airplane, a martini glass, a person running, and two people meeting, the club, or sorry, the spade, heart, diamond, bell, club. There's some of the glyphs available. So now it seems to be repeating. So we hit stop. Nope. I have to back out using transmit. Nope. Not sure how you stop that. Anyway, it stopped. Applications. How about... I'll bet hit is blackjack. Let's try that. So it'll take a minute to load. Transmits. Okay. Back out. Mode, hit game. Okay. Ready? Sure. Oh no. This is like a Space Invader type. Well, this one's kind of fun. This is worth keeping on the game. Or on the watch, I should say. Okay, enough of that. Get out of there. Make sure the speaker works on this. We go to, I think, oops, not hit game, go alarm. No, what was it? Was it these two buttons? Yeah, these two buttons. The two orange ones pressed together will bring up a little bell sign. So the watch beeper does work. Does the hit game have sound? Let's see. It does. It beeps every time you hit one of the enemies. That's fun. Cool. And silence it, two orange buttons. No more noise. Neat. So one thing I found from somebody else online was an app for your phone, assuming your phone has a decent enough speaker, that uses the pulsing or EMF of the speaker to act as the transmitter for the watch if you don't have the base unit. Another thing about the base unit too is that memos and stuff are saved in here. And to reset it, when you turn on and use Shift-I to initialize the base unit to clear its memory. But memos are stored on here if you want to swap them in and out with the watch and edit them. This one here, I didn't get this to work well, but it did in a way. So we have that, do contrast. There's a sweet spot on the phone near the speaker to find. I did get it to work at one point, but again, it depends on if your phone has got the right kind of speaker in it. Yeah, it's not going to work for this demo, but I did get it to work intermittently on my phone. That's it, my demo of my Seiko UC-2000 with the UC-2200 base unit. This one has more functionality than the 3000 series. So let me get out of here. Get out of here. Ow, ow, ow. I think with the calculator, again, it uses the watch is just a display where all the stuff is done on the base unit. You can't use the calculator away from the base unit. So let's do plus equals. Yeah. If I pull it away, well, at least it doesn't complain. The display stays static, but if I do anything on here, yeah, no more functionality. But I can back out by getting out of transmit. compare this to my UC-2000. It comes in this very fancy packaging. The watches look fairly identical, other than the color scheme, but they are not compatible with each other's bases, as far as I could find. The 3000 is completely useless without the base unit. You just use it to type in memos, and then you can recall the memos on the watch and scroll through them. Oh, and it has schedules. I guess that's useful. You can punch in the schedules from here. But switching them around, transmit mode, the contrast does work, so those are compatible. But like if I go to memo on here, nothing, application, nothing, basic, nothing, calculator, nothing, letters do nothing. So basically you just contrast between these two. On the flip side, contrast works here as well, but memo, nothing, schedule says not stored. So there's something going on there with schedule. Not sure what that's recalling, but I wonder if I put this into calculator mode. Oops. Oops. No. So I got, oh, there it goes. We're back. Calculator. There we go. Sneak that over here. Okay, so the number keys work. Letters do nothing. Where's my plus on there? Shift this. That works, okay. Numbers again, return nothing, equals, that works. Okay, so the numbers and symbols are compatible. I don't know of a way to type memos away from the base unit. I can't access them here. It did something when I push it there. Interesting. Okay, so the numbers and letters might be interchangeable. But I can't get into memo mode on here. Although I wonder, yeah, if I go into memo on here, okay. And bring it over here. Nothing on the letters, nothing on the numbers. Let's try that again. Get letters there, get numbers there. No numbers here, no letters there. Interesting. So when the 2000 is in calculator mode, I can use the numbers on the 3100, but I cannot use the numbers and letters on the 3000 from the 2200. I wonder why that is. Interesting. Right, one last demo I forgot about the printer. If we go into the memo, we edit a memo. It's gonna, I believe, copy it off the watch. I'm not sure what it does at this stage. Type in a new memo. Oops, I want my lowercase, so shift. We can, I believe, hit copy, it prints out. Yes, hit copy, it prints it out. So this thermal paper is, who knows how old. We have copy, memo A, EkriirkE was year 2022-07-31, line 1, 2, 3, end. Now to save this in the watch, we have to shift end. I'm just going to copy it into the watch. And we're done. So one thing I wonder about basic, in these page up, page down functions, so you can see the prompt has already scrolled up. If we page up, oh, we're in edit mode. Or is that just a hotkey? That's just a hotkey. So F1 is nothing, F2 is edit, F3, F5 is run. Okay, well, that answers that.